Hi, and welcome back to Love and Life. This is a quiet place, not for people who have everything figured out, but for those who are still trying to understand what it means to be human. If you're here tonight, maybe you're not looking for advice. Maybe you're just hoping someone, somewhere, understands how hard it is to be gentle with yourself when the world moves so fast. And if that's the case, you're in the right place. There's a pressure that doesn't shout, but it lingers quietly behind your thoughts. The kind that wraps around your timeline like a ticking rope, slowly tightening. No one explicitly says you're falling behind, yet every scroll, every conversation, every reunion seems to imply you should have done more. Finished school on time, built a career with direction, met the right person, saved more money, created a stable life. The checklist grows, and so does the discomfort. You smile when asked how things are going, offering vague responses wrapped in optimism, even when your heart feels like it's drifting through fog. You try to reassure yourself with, everyone has their own pace, but the echo of that reassurance often fades too quickly. At night, when the distractions go silent, you start counting. Not blessings, but delays. You notice people your age starting families, launching startups, publishing books, and you wonder if your story missed its cue. It's easy to think that time betrayed you, but maybe time isn't a race. Maybe it's a rhythm, and yours is still unfolding. Viktor Frankl once wrote, "What is to give light must endure burning." Not everything is meant to arrive fast. Some transformations take quiet seasons. Some journeys require stillness before motion. Growth doesn't always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like staying in place and learning why you're here before moving forward again. You're not lost. You're not broken. You're becoming. And becoming takes time that doesn't answer to anyone's clock but your own. You've heard it your whole life. By this age, you should be here. But where is here? And who decides when you are supposed to arrive? Society loves structure. It builds timelines like blueprints. Graduate by 22, land your dream job before 25, marry by 30, buy a house, have children, climb the ladder, retire with grace. Any deviation from that path feels like failure, even when your heart whispers otherwise. But lives aren't buildings. They're not engineered to fit the same mold. They unfold like stories with different genres, characters, and unexpected chapters. The myth of being on time assumes everyone starts at the same line, with the same map, under the same sky. But we don't. Some are handed tools. Others start with nothing but their hands and the willingness to try. So when you find yourself wondering why someone else is ahead, pause and ask, were we even running the same race? You may have been building resilience while they were building resumes. You may have been healing while they were achieving. You may have been learning how to stay alive while they were learning how to get promoted. None of it makes you late. It just makes you human. And humanity, in its truest form, doesn't follow a clock. It follows truth. Think of the trees. A cherry blossom bursts into bloom in early spring. A pine tree stands green all year. A maple waits until autumn to set itself on fire. Not one apologizes for its timing. So why should you? There is no perfect schedule. No universal deadline for becoming who you're meant to be. You're not missing out. You're aligning. You're not stuck. You're rooted. Sometimes life asks you to pause, not to punish you, but to prepare you for something wider than you imagined. Comparison rarely begins with intention. It sneaks in when you're tired, when you scroll without thinking, when someone mentions their promotion or engagement in passing. Suddenly, you're not living your own life. You're measuring it against someone else's highlight reel. You start to wonder if your journey is meaningful at all. The joy you felt about a small step forward feels smaller now, as if it lost value just because someone else moved faster. You don't mean to feel this way, but comparison doesn't ask for permission. It arrives with a ruler you didn't ask for and hands it to your inner critic. But here's the truth. You can't compare growth when you don't know where someone started. You don't know the hours they cried behind closed doors, the mentors they had access to, the privileges they never had to acknowledge. You also don't know what they've given up to be where they are. Maybe they're succeeding in one area and silently struggling in another. Maybe they're ahead in career but lost in identity. Maybe they look composed, but they haven't slept through the night in months. Comparison is not only unfair, it's incomplete. It sees the surface, not the sacrifice. It sees the reward, not the resilience. Growth isn't about doing what others do. It's about becoming more aligned with yourself, your values, your pace, your truth. The moment you stop comparing is the moment you start returning to who you are. No one else has your exact mind, your exact tenderness, your specific combination of pain and perseverance, and that makes your path irreplaceable. Even if your becoming doesn't look like theirs, even if it's slower, quieter, less applauded, it's still yours. And that alone makes it sacred. Some seasons of growth are so quiet, even you can't tell if anything is changing. You wake up, go through the motions, repeat the same routine, and wonder if you're moving or just spinning in place. There are no milestones to post, no applause to mark your effort. It feels like you're standing still. But inside, something subtle is shifting. Maybe you're learning how to stay, not out of fear, but because your soul finally understands that not every storm needs fleeing. Maybe you're starting to breathe slower, to eat without guilt, to speak with more care toward yourself. Tiny things that don't earn headlines, but they matter more than anyone sees. The world often overlooks quiet progress. It celebrates big wins, fast results, shiny transformations. But real becoming isn't always visible. It doesn't always announce itself with change. Sometimes it whispers through consistency. It shows up in the fact that you didn't give up this morning. It hides in the moment you chose not to snap when you were exhausted. It lives in your ability to sit with discomfort rather than escape it. Just because no one is clapping doesn't mean you're not evolving. Some of the most profound changes happen when no one is watching. Think of seeds buried in darkness. They don't grow because someone is cheering. They grow because it's their nature to reach for light, even when the soil feels like silence. You don't owe anyone evidence of your healing. You don't need to broadcast your process to make it real. Let becoming be what it is: personal, sacred, and sometimes invisible. And when it finally shows, you'll recognize it not by how loud it is, but by how honest it feels. No one sets out hoping to lose their way. Yet, somehow, nearly everyone does. A plan falls apart. A dream changes shape. A path that once felt certain starts to blur at the edges. You look around and realize you're not where you thought you'd be. The detour wasn't part of the script, but here you are. Not broken, just somewhere unexpected. There's grief in that realization, not loud or dramatic, but a quiet ache for the version of life you imagined. And it's okay to mourn it. It's okay to miss the idea of who you thought you'd become. But detours don't mean failure. They mean redirection. Life has a strange way of teaching through missteps. What you find off course may not look like progress, but it often carries deeper wisdom than the path you planned. The people you meet when things fall apart, the strength you discover when options disappear, the courage it takes to try again when your heart is tired. None of that comes from walking a straight line. You didn't go backward, you went deeper. And depth builds character far more than speed ever could. It's easy to believe that time lost is opportunity wasted. But some lessons only bloom in detour soil. Some clarity only arrives when you're far from certainty. The map may look different now, but that doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're being invited to explore without assumptions. Detours don't erase the journey. They refine it. And if you let them, they'll take you somewhere not only unexpected, but honest. Progress doesn't always arrive in grand moments. Sometimes it looks like waking up without dreading the day ahead. Sometimes it sounds like speaking more kindly to yourself when you make a mistake. Sometimes it's simply the ability to sit in stillness without needing to run from your thoughts. The world celebrates speed. It glorifies momentum, quick wins, and overnight success. But what it often misses is the quiet endurance it takes to keep showing up, especially when growth feels invisible. You don't need to rush to become something worthy. You already are. And every small act of care, every time you choose healing instead of avoidance, is a step forward, even when no one notices. Fast doesn't always mean better. Sometimes the slower journey is the deeper one. When you move slowly, you feel more. You listen to what your soul is trying to say. You don't miss the details that only silence can reveal. Think of rivers. The ones that move gently often carve the deepest canyons. They don't force their way through. They shape the land with quiet persistence. So does your growth. So does your becoming. The absence of noise doesn't mean the absence of change. In fact, the most lasting transformations often begin without ceremony. They build quietly in the background until one day you look back and realize you no longer flinch at the things that used to shake you. Let slow be sacred. Let it teach you patience, presence, and the art of becoming with grace. There comes a moment, quiet, often unexpected, when you begin to question the clock you've been chasing. Was it ever yours to begin with? Or was it given to you, piece by piece, through other people's expectations, milestones, and definitions of success? You may not remember when it started, but somewhere along the way, you picked up the belief that life had to unfold in a certain order. As if joy had an expiration date, as if healing had a deadline, as if worth could be measured by age and achievement. This timeline, though invisible, can feel like a cage. It whispers that you're late when you're simply learning. It tells you to hurry when what you need is to rest. It convinces you that falling behind means failing, even when what you're doing is simply living more slowly, more intentionally. Letting go of that timeline isn't easy. It requires unlearning the idea that you need to prove yourself through pace. It takes courage to say, "I'm not behind. I'm just becoming on my own terms." Your journey is not an assembly line. There's no universal script. Some people bloom early, others much later, and many grow quietly in ways the world may never fully understand. But that doesn't make their lives any less meaningful. You have permission to rewrite your pace. You have permission to walk away from the pressure to catch up. You're not a project to be completed on schedule. You're a story unfolding in real time, and every delay, every pause, every redirection holds something worthy. So let go of the race, embrace the rhythm, and trust that the life you're building slowly will be one that actually fits. Change often wears a quiet disguise. It doesn't knock with clarity or wait for the perfect moment. More often, it slips in during restless evenings or in conversations that leave you questioning everything you once held certain. It isn't beautiful, not in the traditional sense. You might not notice it at first. There are no neon signs, no applause, just a growing discomfort with what no longer fits. Some days, you'll feel heavy without knowing why. You'll resist familiar things that used to comfort you, not because they're wrong now, but because something inside no longer agrees. That resistance isn't failure, it's a signal, a whisper from the self that's been patiently waiting for space. Becoming isn't a montage of graceful decisions. It's made of split seconds when you speak up instead of staying silent, when you walk away from what once defined you, when you choose to listen rather than defend. Others might not see the effort. They'll only notice distance, maybe silence. But beneath the surface, you are unlearning the need to be understood before you allow yourself to change. There is courage in that. Progress doesn't always bloom under admiration. Sometimes it grows quietly beneath the weight of misunderstood choices. The moments you feel most alone may be the clearest signs that you're beginning to walk your own path. It's not pretty. It's real. And what's real doesn't need to sparkle to matter. You're not unraveling. You're clearing space for what was never allowed to emerge. Progress doesn't always come with a sense of momentum. Sometimes it begins with stillness, the kind that feels unfamiliar because you've been conditioned to associate movement with meaning. But there's a certain peace in pausing long enough to hear yourself again. When the noise fades, clarity can finally emerge, not through sudden epiphanies, but through simple realizations. What drains you, what restores you, what no longer fits, and what you quietly crave. Others may interpret this slowness as hesitation. To them, you might seem unmotivated or uncertain. But from the inside, you know better. You're not falling behind. You're learning to move in a way that honors your own rhythm. You stop rushing into places that don't feel right. You begin noticing which conversations make you shrink and which ones let you breathe. You start paying attention to how your body reacts before your mind justifies. These are signs of alignment, even if no one else recognizes them. Letting go of a path that used to make sense is not a step backward. It's an invitation to walk towards something that feels real, even if you don't have the language for it yet. You no longer measure time by achievements that impress others. You begin to value different markers entirely. The sense of calm that arrives without effort. The moments when your choices feel rooted instead of reactive. the quiet pride that rises when you act in accordance with your values, even when no one's watching. This kind of becoming doesn't shout. It doesn't follow a trend, but it leads you back to yourself, and that is more than enough. For most of life, we're told that becoming is something we complete, a finish line, a version of ourselves that finally arrives, polished and unwavering. But the truth is, there is no final version. You're not moving toward a single identity that waits at the end of all your efforts. You're unfolding constantly. Every experience, every encounter, every quiet shift in your perspective shapes you a little more. Sometimes that change is visible. Other times, it's internal, subtle, and only noticeable when you reflect months later and realize you're no longer reacting to things the same way. There's no singular you to discover and stick with forever. You're allowed to evolve again and again, not because you were wrong before, but because you are meant to expand beyond what you once thought possible. When you accept that becoming is not a goal but a lifelong unfolding, you relieve yourself of the pressure to arrive. You start treating your journey with more compassion, allowing space for detours, for changes in direction, for versions of yourself that existed only to get you here. There will be seasons where you feel steady, and seasons where nothing seems to make sense. Neither is permanent, and neither defines your worth. Let go of the need to prove you've made it. You are not a destination. You are a process, one that softens, reshapes, and rebuilds again and again, with each season adding more honesty to the person you're becoming. Thank you for spending this quiet moment with love and life. If you've made it here, it means you've given yourself the rare gift of reflection, the time to pause, to breathe, to listen inward. Maybe you came here wondering if it's too late. Maybe you've been holding the weight of comparison or the pressure to catch up with a world that rarely stops. But tonight, let this truth stay with you. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not late. You are becoming. Slowly, quietly, deeply, and that is something to honor, not to rush. Your journey does not need to mirror anyone else's. Your pace does not require permission. Your growth may not be loud, but it is real. Wherever you are right now, on a mountaintop or in the middle of a mess, you are still moving forward in ways only your heart understands. So be gentle with yourself. Celebrate the parts of you still learning, still soft, still unsure. Because they are not signs of weakness. They are signs that you're still alive, still reaching, still trying. We'll be here whenever you need to return, to rest, to reflect, to remember who you are underneath the noise. Until next time, take care of your heart and thank you for being here with us. We'll see you in the next video.